Hello everybody, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Eachine Chaser 88. Features a 6 amp 4-in-1 BL-LES ESC, F3 flight controller, 1103 10,000 kV motors, DYS 2030 props, an 800 TV line all-in-one camera and VTX, a micro buzzer with programmable LED. It has an XT30 connection. It weighs 68 grams. Couple things before we get too deep into this that you need to know is that we have some additional weight here in this foam pad, and the foam pad, the screws don't go actually through the foam pad, and this is hard to show you, but my fingernail can actually go underneath the screw heads, so they haven't secured these screw heads all the way down. We can also see where we've got a number of these different rubber O-rings in here, and that does provide some anti-vibration. You can see hopefully that we get a little bit of flex, and I'm trying to hold the screw on the bottom down while I do that. We have this antenna protector here. Let's see if it's metal or not. So it's not metal, so it must be some sort of plastic. It feels pretty substantial, but we've got a long ways between where it's secured to the frame and where it's supposed to be protecting, so I'm not sure about the durability of this actually keeping our antenna safe. Maybe, because again, this isn't a big heavy unit. Your battery rubber bands here are behind that, so in order to change these out, we're going to need to take the antenna mount off, and that involves getting a little tiny screwdriver in back behind here if we can. I'm not sure if we can. Maybe it's secured from the bottom. Let's take a peek. It is secured from the bottom. So in order to take that antenna off, we just flip these little ear flaps back and we can unscrew that to get new rubber bands in there. Because invariably, if you fly this enough and you land this enough with bottom mounting, these are going to fray, get weak, and they're going to come off. It comes with that XT30 that I mentioned, and I'm not crazy about that, but that's kind of my personal preference. Is just about all my 2 and 3S batteries have JSTs, and I find that you can still go hard and go fast even on a JST. So I think that's a little bit questionable, but of course if you've got a crimper and a set of JST connectors, you can swap that out, or you can make an adapter like I have. It does come with an extra set of props. It comes with a battery charger via USB, and we also have a 450 mAh battery that we can fly with. Now, a word about these props, I have not used them yet. I did a hover test with this to make sure that it does work. I have heard via Facebook and RC groups that the counterclockwise props are terribly unbalanced. So we'll get to take a look at that a little bit firsthand ourselves. I hear V2 of these are better. Just last night I was reading about how people don't like these props because they say they're garbage, but it seems like just about every prop you can find a subsection of people that will say they're no good. So we'll get to take a look at them ourselves, and fortunately I bought from Airblade UAV a set of V2s, so we'll get to see if V2s are better than V1s as far as their balance is concerned. If you want to change your camera mount out, say you break it or something, you are going to have to unscrew from the bottom because these round nuts, I think that's going to be problematic to try to get the nuts off this way. I think we're going to have to take the bolt out down. But we shouldn't have to take it down far, we just need to get the nuts off. So that's a little something that's a little bit different as far as the repairability. You can see here that I've got an AC800 FR Sky receiver that I put on there, and it works just fine. I did have to change out the connector on mine because this is a 3-pin connector and it came with a 4-pin connector on the wire. So I do know that other receivers that are 3-wire do come with 4-pin connectors, so something to keep in mind. And I just secured mine by using a little bit of servo tape here on the back and then run a zip tie around it, and I think that'll be fine. This thing is very, very light. And then I moved the antenna out here over to the side to make sure that I could get some reception and it wasn't really close. Although I've had antennas that are really close to antennas and never really had a problem. Camera tilt is pretty modest. The pictures that they show online shows a lot more camera tilt. I think what we're going to do, if you want to get more camera tilt, you could actually disassemble everything, but that seems kind of more effort than needed. What I am planning on doing is just to try to pull this up and to put a little bit of foam underneath the nose, or maybe even a piece of blue tack or something of that nature, just to pop up the camera just a little bit, because I do think at this angle that's pretty modest, and it may be fine if you're at the beginning of your FPV journey, but I think before I do the FPV flight I'm going to pop that back. Let's take this outside. Let's do a little line of sight test, and that will give us an idea of its thrust and if these props are any good or not. Normally this would be the section where you'd start to see some flight footage, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my journey with this thing. As you can see, I've got some cut down two-bladed props on here, and the reason behind that is, and I will scoot over here so you can see some of it go on over there. When I did a hover test to make sure everything worked, I noticed right off the bat with the stock props, and I'm not necessarily blaming these props right now, I'm just telling you this is my journey. With the props, it had the wobbles, almost like it had oscillations from PIDs that needed tuned. And at first I thought, well, let's try some different PID tuning, but I'd also heard online negative things about these props. So I had what I was told was V2, which was supposed to be better balanced and better overall, so I put those props on. And that didn't yield anything different. So then I started tinkering with PIDs, and I started having more and more troubles trying to get things in line. Things would get more out of line on me. So then I started looking at other props that I have and what else I could try. And these are props, I just put all of them in a bag like this. I can't remember who they were manufactured by, but I had them for the Tarot. That I had, well, I still have it, but got that more than a year ago. And I cut them down. And why I chose those was because with the 20 degrees pitch, the hub is tall enough to where I can still use the stock motors. Because when I used the thicker 30 pitch gym fans, that I didn't have the right size of screw to mount those, because the stock screws would not fit. And I didn't have the right size. They were way too long, or at least I felt they were too long. They would get way down into the bell, and I was worried I was going to ruin a motor with the screws that I had that would allow this to mount to the screw. So I had to stick with these. And I'll show you that flight footage to wind up. And I did quite a bit of PID tuning with that, and got it to kind of fly fairly decent. Still had some oddities every once in a while that I really couldn't figure out. There's almost a catch, and hopefully you can hear it in the audio when we play it. And that's why I'm not playing it now, is that I do have audio so you can listen to it a little bit. And then I read on Facebook, or I was told in not so nice terms, that these props are fine and that I needed to go to school. We'll say that. So I was like, all right, they say these props are great. I throw those on the Hoverbot, and they do work fine. They don't press on very well because this center hole is too big. They're really, I think, made for the two motor screws. But I just stuck them on there real quick, and I didn't see any wobbles or vibrations, and it really didn't give me any fits as far as flying around until they would fly off from hitting the throttle a little bit would cause one of them to fly off. And of course, if you wanted to use these on a Hoverbot or another press-on fit, you could do a couple of things. One, you could take a needle with some super glue on it and just kind of rub it around on the inside of the hole to try to make that hole smaller, so then they press on and stick a little bit more. Or maybe a simpler thing, use some dental floss, run it down through there, press it on, cut the ends of your dental floss off, and voila, you're done. So these props seem reasonable on the Hoverbot, but for whatever reason with this, these props just don't work. I couldn't make these props work on the Chaser 88. And I'll show you, I have a lot of those. So you will be seeing those on other vehicles just to prove that point later on. Or maybe just because they're good looking props. And you also notice that right now my screw heights, I've really tightened all this stuff up, because that was something else I was trying, was to tighten up. Maybe we were getting too much, almost like a jello effect from having this too loose, and so I tightened it up, and nope, that made things worse. And then I would loosen it a little bit and fly it a little bit, and I'd loosen it a little bit and fly it a little bit. I really couldn't find a sweet spot. Essentially where they had it was as good as it's going to get, I think. I'm going to show you the flight footage. And I hope that if you're looking at buying this, you'll take all these things into consideration. If you have one of these things and you're having troubles making it fly very well, there's an RC group thread, which I'll link down below. And many people have done a lot of different things, and you can try those things out as well. I did not read through every option, but I have heard that a lot of people are experiencing the wobbles with this. I did find one video where there was very little flight footage, and they indicated that they thought it was really good. So I didn't quite understand that. That was a little bit of a mystery to me. The XT30 on this, I don't really think this is necessary. What do we got? We got 18 gauge on here. This is what I suggest. If your connector gets hot, then it's time to move up to a connector that can carry more amperage. I have not experienced a hot connector on any of the batteries that I've run for 3S with a JST, so I don't think that an XT30 is necessary. Maybe you would just prefer it. You know, if you prefer it, use it. But if you're looking to fly faster or get more thrust from your motors, check your gauge of wire on both your battery and on your machine before you go to changing the connector out for anything larger, because it's not going to do you any good. You can check the standard wiring practices as far as the specifications for wires and for connectors and make your own determination. Whatever you hear online, do your own research. Just like from what I'm telling you today, look at other videos, find out what they're saying about this machine. Don't just believe one source. I don't think this is a very good product right now. I think it was rushed. I wouldn't buy it. I don't recommend people buy it, but if you like it, I hope that you're able to find that it flies very, very well for you. I think these props are okay, but these particular props are very fragile. If you have a crash or a tumble at all, they are going to bend. Like that. Alright, that's my final thoughts on this. I've spent way more time on it than it should have. I really wish it would fly better right out of the box, but unfortunately, it's a little bit half-baked, I think. And one of the things that I noticed when I was fussing with this thing was when I started doing all the PID tuning, as the board, Betaflight recognizes the board as VGOO, and maybe I've used that board before and I just didn't recognize it because it worked fine, but I have no idea what that is. But as far as the target goes for Betaflight, it's running Pico BLX 3.1.0. So that just seemed odd to me. So do more research, look at it for yourselves. I appreciate you coming and watching, and I'll leave you with the flight footage that is the best flight footage that I could get with this particular machine. And you'll note at near the end of it, I have what I think is a motor going bad. So I'm bobbing up and down real fast trying to see if I can hear what the problem is. And you'll be able to hear that as well. Okay, thanks for watching.